So the purpose for this video was to balance the disc on my disc grinder. But according to my vibrometer, I don't need to do so. Hello YouTube, Jerry Kirkpatrick here, and before we get into the recap, looking at all the different mods that I've made to the disc grinder in the last few months, I would like to explain the vibrometer, which is nothing more than a radio antenna. And for a couple of years, this was the only diagnostic tool I had back in the 60s when I bought my very first car, a 46 Ford four-door sedan with a 6-cylinder in it. I had no diagnostic tools, so when I would do a tune-up, change the plugs or the points, rebuild the carburetor or whatever, the only way I had of tuning in the motor was watching the antenna on the side of the car. I would get everything where it would run, okay, after putting everything back together. I would get it running, and then I would look at the antenna and adjust the timing until it slowed down a little bit. And then I would go and adjust the idle, both the idle speed. I usually had to bring it down because it was just barely running when I put everything back together. I would adjust the idle speed and then the jets and watch, or jet, it was a 6-cylinder, one barrel. Watch the antenna, and it would start to calm down a little bit more. Play with the timing a little bit more, bring it in, and then after 2 or 3 rounds of doing this, I'd have the timing in, and then I would have to start playing with the air bleed and the jet, the air bleed and the idle speed. And then once my antenna was sitting nice and steady, I knew I had the motor pretty well dialed in, or as close, at least it liked where it was at. So now you know what to do if you ever find a antenna. They're also good for listening to generator and alternator bearings and water pump bearings. So an old antenna is a pretty good tool. So let's get over to the disc grinder, and we'll go through one by one each of the modifications that I've made to it and how we got to where it is now. I love it. It goes forward and back, not noisy at all, sparks not flying all over the place. Let's get over there and take a look. Well, I wasn't aware of it until just now that a vibrometer can also be a pointer. So this is the disc grinder complete. I can't think of another thing that I want to do to it as of yet. So the first thing that we did was make the spark catcher, which took all of the sparks, funneled it down into one area instead of having my whole floor just stuck with metal grinding. That did well, but it still didn't capture all of the sparks. So then we added the catch pan. That worked somewhat. It really came into its own when I just added 2 inches of water to it. That's all it took. So one of the main things that brought this whole project along was making the funnel, funneling everything down into 2 inches of water. If you do that to any of your grinding machines, that's going to help you a lot. The next thing I did was I got rid of all of the tools that I had affixed to the frame, all in the back. It just made it noisy as hell, everything rattling around. Getting rid of anything that was affixed to this metal frame, any metal that was affixed to the metal frame that would make allow for a rattle. I got rid of it. So the catch pan is sitting in a piece of wood, so I've eliminated that much as I could. Also, to get away from all of the noise, all of the rattles, I made a new bushing for the hub of the disc itself. And there was, if I remember correctly, there was like 4 or 5 thousandths distance between the hub and the hub that was bolted to the disc itself. And then another 4 or 5 that was between the inside bore of the hub adapter that I had just made and the actual shaft of the motor. And if I remember correctly, I had about a 7 thousandths run out up and down. This thing would go up and down, and that created quite a rattle, quite a bit of vibration. So that helped with the truing up the hub, getting rid of all of the crap that I had bungee corded to the frame. That made it much quieter. The next thing was the spark guard. If you remember, every time I would grind, there would be an array of sparks that would come over on this bench and the bench to the other side. And the way I made it right now, when I turn this to the forward, position, this rotates in a clockwise rotation. But I can get a piece in here. This is up about 4 inches, so I can use this whole edge of the disc. If I want to run this in reverse, move this switch to this side, I can loosen a thumb screw, slide this over. Now I have 4-inch clearance here, and I can grind the other side of a piece. Sometimes you have a cutout that you need to get into one side or the other. So making this spark shield that would move for either direction of rotation was great. And then the last thing that we did was install the forward and reverse switch, and that made a new machine out of this, with this being able to go on either side, arresting the sparks, whether it was in either the forward or reverse rotation. I know I'll be using this machine a lot more than I used to. There were certain projects that lent themselves to the disc grinder, but the thing was so scary, I wouldn't use it unless it was almost necessary. Nothing else would do. Most of the time I could use a hand grinder, you know, a little 4-inch flap disc, whatever. But if I really wanted to hog some material, this was it. And when I would use it, it was noisy as hell. It would jump all over the place. I had to use only this one side, and it would just make a mess of the floor and the benches on either side. So what is that, like 6 different modifications I made this a whole new usable tool. So that's it. Thank you very much for watching. Please give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell. I truly love a cup of coffee. See you later.